Good evening. It's February 21st, 2021, Sunday. Welcome to another edition of Cultivating Culture. Tonight's show, we're going to show the connection between Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and Fred Hampton. So, as always, at the beginning of our show, we have a little video, and here it goes.
The black people are subjects of ostracism. It is said that our humanity has shown us no more love, no greater sympathy than we are experiencing. Wheresoever you go throughout the world, the black man is discarded, is ostracized, is relegated to the lowest in things, social, political, and economical. This therefore suggests a problem and one that must be solved. If we leave America and go over to the east to Japan, they will be telling their fellow citizens of Japan of the wonderful accomplishments of the Japanese people, proving that man is moving onward as time moves on. But you have hated yourselves as you have done in previous years. You have shown malice, prejudice, and hate to each other. And the result is that while other races have made progress, while India has made progress towards nationalism, while Ireland has made progress towards republicanism, while the whole world has made progress in man's accomplishments, you still stand fighting yourselves, dishonoring yourselves, showing no disposition toward that higher life, so that you will be abundantly blessed. Fighting America, we're not fighting this great government. Then what are you doing? We're fighting hypocrisy and lies, and this we're going to fight until the bitter end. Are you fearful of being deported? There's no federal law whereby I could be processed against on the grounds of being an undesirable from the point of view of deportation. Yes, there is. Under Section 19 of the Act to regulate the immigration of aliens to and their residence in the U.S. I arrived in this country on March 23rd, 1916. Today is June 18th, 1923. That law still has that the law could impose 5 years in the penitentiary, the maximum fine of $5,000 as provided by the law, and the entire cost of the case. A condition not generally imposed maybe once in 25 years. It was not Marcus Garvey on trial. It was not a question of money on trial. It was the principle of a race fighting for liberty on trial. And when you attack the principles of the UNIA, Garvey goes to war, and he remains on the firing line until he passes away or until Victor perches on the banner. I am going to prison because I dare to serve you. Neglect my home, a loyal and dear woman, my wife, and myself. Above all, the things I prize most in the world is the honor of my name. I have never in all my life, to my conscious knowledge, done one mean act.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that video of our reality. And that's pieces of a speech by Marcus Garvey that he made in 1921. Last show, we went over Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, and Paul Robeson. But with Marcus Garvey, we really didn't get a long time to go over some of his achievements. And actually, I did a lot more research this week, and during that research, I learned a lot more. But I always knew about the connection between Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X. Being that today is February 21st, and this is the anniversary, I'll say, of his assassination at the Audubon Ballroom in New York City in 1965. And so each year people pretty much go over the death. Last year we did something on my brother Shafi's show, and we went over the Who Killed Malcolm X. It was a show that was out. I'm sure it's been out this year again. People have been looking at it. And so today you're going to get a lot of shows. You're going to get a lot of events, things that's talking about Malcolm, his life, and what's going on. But one of the things is for us, like last year, we went over who's going to be picking up the torch and moving forward. And this effort that we're doing with this program is one of the things. That's why we're going out with disseminating information, educating the people, and letting them know that this is our effort to move forward with Malcolm's agenda. Malcolm didn't want to be praised. Malcolm wanted our people to be raised. Malcolm wanted our people to go to another level. And if you look at the things that was happening before he died. But one of the things is a lot of times people focus on the connection from Malcolm to Elijah Muhammad. And they act like Malcolm was just an ignorant man, wayward, and that's how they try to show. This, of course, benefits, the media, the benefits to other people, benefits his opposition. But the reality is that Malcolm was the son of a martyr. And this man was martyred because he was pushing the message of Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey, as you see, Marcus Garvey had the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and that organization had several million followers all over the world, and they were doing major things. If you listen to his speech, actually that speech, some of the statements that this man was making was amazing. Amazing for him to be able to make these type of statements at that time when you hear about it and you hear it. And what I did was what our producers put together the modern day events with his previous statements. And one of the things that when you look at Marcus Garvey, you look at his life and you look at how they set him up. You know, the first agent of the FBI, but they were not called the FBI at that time, but they were run by one individual. And that's the common factor between Marcus, Malcolm, and Fred Hampton is J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover was just starting the organization, just coming out, and they put him in a position. And one of his first people, effort that he had to destroy was Marcus Garvey. So the first black to be in the FBI was assigned to Marcus Garvey, and then they had several other individuals. And those people that are seeing, the movie that has come out, Judas and the Black Messiah. Well, this type of statement that he made about a Black Messiah, he was talking about that 50 years prior when he first came in. So he talked about that with Malcolm X. He talked about that with Muhammad Ali. He talked about that with Martin Luther King. So this man started out with Marcus Garvey, and he saw what Marcus Garvey was able to do in such a short amount of time. When you think about it. I see people have pages and they got 1 million followers, 2 million followers, and that's something. Imagine having 6 million in a time when there's no TV, hardly anybody had telephone. All of these things, to be able to get that in a 7-year period, a short amount of time. But that showed that how powerful this man was. And one of the major things is that he was very organized. And so Malcolm's father was a Garveyite. His house had been burned down because of what he was in Lansing, because he was pushing the Garvey message, and this was a message of success. And the places where he was, they weren't used to Negroes at that time. That was the term they used, achieving like that. I'm stepping to them like talking like that. And then they were achieving. They were establishing their own business, getting independent, and he was really pushing the Garvey program. So then one day he was found dead. They had said that he had fallen under the railroad track and the train ran over his head. So here it is, a man that was standing up for the cause. That's Malcolm's father. So now here it is. You have a father like that. Malcolm's father was killed because of standing up. So even though his mother went through what she went through, and then Malcolm went astray basically from, what was it, I think 15, 16 or whatever to 21, and that's when he went to jail. So, 5-6 year period. But the thing is when you have a father like that, you never forget. The people will never let you forget. They will continue to remind you. He wasn't a man that was born in a state of ignorance. He had a father that had several kids, and they were strong on that message. So when they found the message of nationalism, with the Nation of Islam combined with religion, he was very interested. But he still had that basis as far as leadership. I look at myself. My father was a part of the movement. Actually, this is a book that he had. I should keep it in good condition. It's Who Took the Weight, right, by Norfolk prisoners. And in this, the only thing that I had left while my father was doing time was a letter that he wrote, but it was inspiration. And so I know how it is when you have a strong father, a father that's involved in the cause, how that keeps you going. So whether you go through situations or fall, you're still strong on, that upbringing. So actually, I'm going to read this letter that my father put in this book. And if you guys get a chance, it's called, Who Took the Weight by Norfolk prisoners. This is the same prison that Malcolm was in, but it was 10 years after Malcolm had left. My father was in there, and he was also on the debate team. He sent me a letter. He said, A letter for James Andrew Lang Jr., I was 6, 1970. Have I committed an unpardonable sin by allowing myself to be captured and incarcerated by our enemy, depriving my son and my daughters of protection and my wife of a man, adding another matriarchal family structure to the list, and contributing to the development of the stereotype, performing a disservice to the struggle? Or have I contributed to the intensification of the struggle by breaking the genealogical progression of paternal submission to the oppressor's blueprint and eternal enslavement, moving on up to a higher plane of complete submission to the will of Allah, the Creator, the best knower, controller of the universe, who has a master plan for the restoration of harmony and tranquility to our bedeviled planet? And I am but an instrument in the hands of the Maker, who surely knows best. So you see, my son, if it be the will of Allah that we not be together in physical presence for whatever length of time He may decide is necessary, don't cry, although men often do cry. Remember, my mind is always on you, my spirit is always with you, to guide you to the righteous path, and Allah is with us. So who can prevail against us? Assalamu alaikum. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, this is what I had. It kept me going, and so because I'm familiar with it, because I'm familiar with having a father that's in the struggle, I know that even though I may have gone through my things, I still had that upbringing that was there. So with Malcolm, his father was Garvey. Malcolm continued to read the messages of Garvey. When Malcolm went to New York, which was where the Garvey movement was. So a lot of the programs, a lot of things that was established, the people were willing to go with it. They were ready. So, but anyway, going back to Garvey, Garvey's wife, and that was one of the other common things. Garvey had a strong wife, Malcolm had a strong wife, and Fred Hampton had a strong woman who probably would have been his wife if he wasn't, assassinated. So, and this is important. And society today is trying to turn it into a feminist type of thing. No, these are strong women. Just like I talked about before about Harriet Tubman, a strong woman. People always put it into a strong woman, she has to be a certain way. No, strong women like strong men, and they work together and they complement each other, not they compete against each other to see which one is stronger. So his wife, when Marcus Garvey had got arrested, and like I said, going back, Hoover had some FBI agents. They planted. They were working with him. They set him up by were selling some stock, and they were so-called trying to engage in fraud. There was a whole bunch of people they indicted, but he was the only one that they convicted because they wanted to take him out. And Hoover throughout his life was always saying the black messiah or this black person is the biggest threat to America. Even down to Fred Hampton, from Malcolm, all the time, because that's what his program was from the beginning of his reign of illegal activity. Because a lot of times we like to say that he represents the FBI. No, the FBI is an organization, has rules and regulations. All of these places have rules and regulations that they have to follow. Unfortunately, most of these people don't abide by their regulations, and he wasn't. It's not your job to set people up to be able to remove somebody from something that they're not, getting rid of the government. They're not doing sedition like the guys just did at the Capitol or those type of activities, And this is what he continued to do. He did it with Garvey. He did it with Malcolm, and then he just did a straight one with Fred Hampton and various other black men and women throughout his 50-year reign of terror amongst us. So going back to this book, his wife, Amy Jacks Garvey, what she did is she made a book, and it's called Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, edited by Amy Jacks Garvey. So I'm just going to read the preface and then a couple of statements that they had in there that was really important so people can understand. And what I did is on our Facebook I put the links. I put the links to the first 3 chapters. I also put the links to the PDF for the book. I tried to do a weak attempt to at least make it audio, but I'm calling for somebody else out there to make a better attempt, because what I've learned is this: it's better to make an attempt and try to do something and then get somebody to top it to never do it at all, because you're waiting to be able to do it perfect. Most of the time we're always waiting for us to do something perfect, and we never get something done. Oh, if I had this, then I can do that. No, just do it. Get it going, get it started, then somebody else will pick it up and make it better. Nothing's wrong, because the point is we want to be able to spread the message. So the preface is, it says, dedicated to the true and loyal members of the Universal Negro Improvement Association in the cause of African redemption. This volume is compiled from the speeches and articles delivered and written by Marcus Garvey from time to time. My purpose for compiling same primarily was not for publication, but rather to keep as a personal record of the opinions and sayings of my husband during his career as the leader of that portion of human family known as the Negro race. However, on second thought, I decided to publish this volume in order to give the public an opportunity of studying and forming an opinion of him, not from inflated and misleading newspaper magazine articles, but from expressions of thoughts enunciated by him in defense of his oppressed and struggling race, so that by his own words he may be judged, and Negroes the world over may be informed and inspired for truth, brought to light, forced convictions, and the state of conviction inspires action. The history of contact between the white and black races for the last 300 years, now it's 400 years, this was written 100 years ago, 300 years or more, records only a series of pillages, wholesale murders, atrocious brutalities, industrial exploitation, disfranchisement of the one on the other, the strong against the weak. But the sun of evolution is gradually rising, shedding its light between the clouds of misery and oppression, and quickening and animating to a racial consciousness and eventual national independence, black men and women the world wide. This is beautiful. This is his wife. So this, sisters, this is what you need to do. Back up your husband like that when he goes to jail and still keep up the struggle. Then she continues. It is human, therefore, that few of us within the Negro race can comprehend this transcendent period. We all suffer in more or less degree. We all feel the awakening spirit of true manhood and womanhood. True manhood and womanhood. But it is given to few the vision of leadership. It is an inspiration. It is a quality born in man. Therefore, in the course of leadership, it is natural that one should meet opposition because of ignorance, lack of knowledge, and sympathy of the opposition in understanding fully the spirit of leadership. With the dawn of the new age, which precedes the day of national independence for Negroes, it is well for all members of the race to understand their leadership, know what its essentials are, its principles are, and help it to attain its goal and liberate a race in the truest sense of the word. So, and this is was written in 1923, February 23rd. So 1923, almost 100 years ago. And almost 100 years ago, this is still true today. So I encourage us, instead of making up new books and making up new things and dealing with the same old problem, because the situation hasn't changed, it's actually gotten worse. We need to be able to study our history and study what was the solutions. It's one of the things I was with a couple of weeks ago. I did Martin Luther King, and he did a speech, and he talked about the myth of time, that things will change with time. And he said one thing about time. He said that time is neutral. He said you can be constructive or destructive. And he said the thing that he found out is that the opposition tends to be take advantage of their time and be very destructive, and they plan their plans out for 100 years and 50 years, and they're effective while we sit back. He said, and the ones that should be constructive are not being constructive. And this is what we have to do. We have to look at them. One of the things is, for the racists, one of their major people that they follow was Adolf Hitler. He wrote this book, Mein Kampf. and you can get it in audio, you can get it in PDF, and you look at it, and all of them, they study it. They study their leaders. And this guy's from 100 years ago. He wrote the book in 1925. So almost 100 years ago. But they're still reading him today, learning from him today, but yet us, the Negro, is just looking for somebody new, looking for the new book, and not going into the successes of those before that was in the position, that was able to deal with some real racist situations and overcome that. What better people to be able to find how to succeed than those that succeed in some real situations, from going from being owned like a dog to being able to have their own business, or be like, Madam C.J. Walker and all of these people, where they had and establishing institutions. Look at the black institutions, the colleges that were established during the time, and what have we been able to establish now? Nothing. So here it is in that time of opposition. So we need to be able to listen to those voices of the past and study them. This is an excellent book, Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, edited by Amy Jacques Garvey. I'm just going to read some of the points that they had in there, just little statements, so to be able to get you to understand the greatness of this man. I mean, it's amazing, the things that he said. And then, matter of fact, there's another book that the racists that they study, and other people, even the financial people, Think Rich and Grow. They all of these things. They study those people of the past. They study the people from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and they study their techniques. We have to do that same thing in order for us to be able to be successful. We have been successful, and we need to be able to take that and combine it. That is what happens. You have to have generational. One of the things that I feared about this movie that had with Judas and the Messiah, talking about Fred Hampton, is that they have him as a 20-year-old. And then some may think that, he did things on his own without thought. That's why I'm showing you the connection. I'm going to show you the statements of Garvey. I'm going to show you the statements of Malcolm. I'm going to show you the statements of Fred Hampton and H. Rap Brown and all of them. It's a continuous thing, generational. This is how we build. So one of the things that in his book, he defines, he gives titles and definitions. Hold on for a second. I got a call. Take it for a moment. And I'm going to come back to Titles and Definitions by Marcus Garvey. Hello?
Hi. I just wanted to make a comment in reference to what you were talking about tonight.
Okay, how are you?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
Great. It's a good subject. We're trying to revive the people, get everybody ready, turn this revolution into the direction that is going, is revolution of the mind, revolution of the soul, and revolution of the body. Get in shape, too. Go ahead.
Right. So I do agree with you, like, the history is the most important thing. And that's what we as black people, like, if we don't, like you said, if we don't start identifying it, if we don't understand where our history is from, then we're going to continue to do the same things over and over again.
Right.
Like, there's the reason why there's not taught in the history books for our children. Every other history is taught, and the reason for that, and they don't even go even in school with American history, is because so we can learn from our past and learn who we are and move forward. But we as a people, as a black people, have to realize that none of this is new. The George Floyd is not new. The kick down in Florida, these are not new. They're just being publicized because we can record them now. But if we don't understand the history, we'll never move forward. Like with Marcus Garvey, when they convicted him, to the 5 years, he owned several businesses, he owned theaters, he owned laundromats, he owned, I think it was a public library, he owned a music studio, and this was back in the 30s, in the 40s. Okay, right. We have to understand the history because it will repeat itself. Like what happened with Wall Street, the Black Wall Street in Tulsa. Mm-hmm. Okay, we were successful, powerful people.
Right.
But if we don't understand the history, and that's why it's good that you're emphasizing and bringing back these great leaders, and bringing back. And we have to be able to engage and talk to each other. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. You gave a lot of information and put us in the right direction. I mean, one of the things that you talked about it with that case, like I say, Hoover, was involved in that case and was involved in Fred Hampton. That's a long time. One man had that type of reign to just do what he wants to. And so he got to the point of just slight setting up to, straight execution as they showed in the movie. But I pulled the indictment that they had from the District Court of the United States of Southern District of New York. And in there, it was like a couple of statements that they had in there. They said the nature of the scheme, as set forth in the indictment, was an endeavor to persuade especially colored men and women to purchase stock in the Black Star Line Incorporated, a corporation existing under the laws of Delaware and having for its purpose the acquisition and management of steamships, which vessels were ultimately intended to transport to Africa many colored men and much material there to build up a greater country of the Negro race. This is in the indictment. They're even talking about how that the reality of that. He was incorporated, had the businesses, like you said, he had all of these businesses. They were going to have a steamship at that time, you see, and trying to and going back and forth, going to Africa, making that connection. He had even purchased land in Liberia, and it was a rubber plant in Liberia. They backed out and then sold it to Firestone. So this is the type of effort that was being achieved.
We have it right now where even as African Americans, you got Black Americans be like, African, I African. I ain't from Africa, so where are you from? Is there a black called country?
Well, see,
is there a country called black?
One of the things is that during this time, and he talks about propaganda. At the same time that Hoover got in, they also had just started with Hollywood. And Hollywood got built by a racist, and the city still remains a racist city. I was listening to the guy that had put together the movie, the Judas and the Black Messiah, and he was talking about, reminding about the racism. He's from New York, and he said he went there and he dealt with the racism. So from a racist city, like I lived in Boston when I was in college, they're not going to give you jobs. They're going to discriminate. Why do we expect the place that we get all the projection that we allow into our homes, allow into the minds of our children and our people, and set the pace of where they're going to go, how they're going to think, and they're coming from a racist city and a racist state and expect to be able to have success? No.
Right.
So
we have to continue. So please continue doing the great things that you do with your show each week, and God bless.
All right, peace be with you. Wa alaikum assalam. Yeah, and going back to really, actually, I'm gonna skip over because talking about the indictment. In the indictment, he said, and this is a statement. He said, I was amazed when my friend, the district attorney, said that he was more interested in Negroes than Marcus Garvey. They are so accustomed to the old camouflage that they believe that they can please it everywhere, to the satisfaction of every Negro and to everyone who comes into contact with them. That is the old camouflage that made them our missionaries 60 years ago. It is the same camouflage that will not stand today. It is impossible for a Negro to be more interested in a Jew than a Jew is interested in himself. It is impossible for an Englishman to be more interested in an Irishman than an Irishman is in himself. It is a lie for any Jew to say he is more interested in Negroes than Negroes are interested in themselves. It is an unnatural lie to talk about one race being more interested in another race than that race is interested in itself. But that only shows how desperate they are. Sometimes we have to be aware of Greeks bearing gifts. Unfortunately, I do not have the last word, and therefore I was silenced after I placed my defense. But nevertheless, the world will know tomorrow the outcome of the case of Marcus Garvey. So even here, and he's talking about it, and this is how we do. Most of the time, when they're always giving us the solutions of what we're supposed to do for ourselves. Oh, I know what's best for you. Like, we don't know. I'm here for you. No, you take care of yourself, and you can assist me with my tax dollars, give me some of my money, and we can be able to set a plan. But one of the things, going back to it, this is what Marcus Garvey was talking, goes all the way to Fred Hampton. In this book, he did a definition, and the definition that he did was he did several different ones, but one of them I'm going to actually go to, like one of the latter ones. It's traitors, and he said in the fight to reach the top, the oppressed have always been encumbered by the traitors of their own race, made up of those of little faith, and those who are generally susceptible to bribery for the selling out of the rights of their own people. As Negroes, we are not entirely free of such an encumbrance. To be outspoken, I believe we are more encumbered in this way than any other race in the world, because of the lack of training and preparation for fitting us for our place in the world amongst the nation races. And I'm going to say that because he's saying that we're not prepared. We don't really believe in ourselves enough. And we're not training our people so that, it's worth it to be able to not sell out, because we are going to be in a good position. He said the traitor of other races is generally confined to the mediocre or irresponsible individual. But unfortunately, the traitors amongst the Negroes race are generally to be found among the men highest placed in education and society, the fellow who calls themselves leaders. For us to examine ourselves thoroughly as a people, we will find that we have more traitors than leaders. For us to examine ourselves thoroughly, we have more traitors than leaders, because nearly everyone who essays to lead the race at this time does so by first establishing himself as the pet of some philanthropist or another race, to whom he will go and debase his race in the worst form. And so, it was this 100 years ago, and we still continue. All somebody got to do is fund your organizations. These organizations being funded, Soros is giving $200 million. You think he's not going to have any say in what you do? All of these people that always want to be involved and give money to us and stuff, are they not going to have any say because they know best of what you do? So it's difficult. So he says, some philanthropist, to whom he will go and debase his race in the worst form, humiliate his own manhood, and thereby, they love us to humiliate our manhood, and thereby win the sympathy of the great benefactor, who will dictate to him what he should do in the leadership of the Negro race. It is generally saying, he said, they generally say, you must go out and teach your people to be meek and humble. Tell them to be good servants, loyal and obedient to their masters. If you will teach them such and such doctrine, you can always be dependent on me to give $1,000 a year or $5,000 a year for the support of yourself, the newspaper, or the institution you represent. I will always recommend you to my friends as a good fellow who is right. With this advice and prospect of patronage, the average Negro leader goes out to lead the unfortunate mass. Then leaders tell us how good so-and-so is and how many good friends he is. And this is what we're still doing right now, 100 years later. This is why it's important to read. So as we see these things, we set these things up so that we don't keep falling into these same traps. Here's a trap that he talked about. He talked about poverty. He said poverty, definition, a hellish state to be in. It is no virtue. It is a crime. To be poor is to be hungry without possible hope of food, to be sick without hope of medicine, to be tired and sleepy without a place to lay one's head, to be naked without the hope of clothing, to be despised and comfortless. To be poor is to be a fit subject for crime and hell. I'm going to say that again. To be poor is to be a fit subject for crime and hell. And that's why they keep us in that situation, because it's easy to set up and it's easy to get more slaves and send them to the jail. The hungry man steals bread and thereby breaks the 8th commandment. By his state he breaks all the laws of God and man and becomes an outcast in thought and deed. He covets his neighbor's goods, comfortless as he is. He seeks his neighbor's wife. To him there is no other course but sin and death. This is the way of poverty. No one wants to be poor. And this is the same thing. And that's why Marcus Garvey had, solid plans for us to be able to get the economics. And then Malcolm started doing the same thing. Malcolm, and please read the book and you'll see. But Malcolm actually started implementing those same type of programs. He did them with the Nation. When he joined the Nation, they have a couple hundred followers, 400 followers, and then they build it up to be an extremely large organization with farms and all kind of businesses. And basically, he implemented the Marcus Garvey program. So one of the things is, real quick, as I'm going to put with the connection, with Malcolm, as we know, I'm sure they have a whole bunch of shows going on today about Malcolm and what happened with his death. So you can look at those shows and they'll tell you, what went on with his death. But making the connection, one of the things that we have to do is we have to look at what Malcolm was talking about. We're going to play in a minute. Matter of fact, I'm gonna play two is his he had an interview. Actually, he had an interview. I'll play one of them. He had an interview and he was talking with someone, and it was his last show. I think it was on the 15th, a few days before he died, and he went over some things about the bombing of his house. But this is an interview where Malcolm was asked a question, and I posted this before saying that this is the nail that put in the coffin, for Malcolm. And when people are talking about radicalism, extremism, Malcolm had gone to England in December, 3 months before he passed, or before he was assassinated, and he won a debate on extremism, and he was pro-extremism, saying extremism, and and so you should check out that debate. But this was a question that he asked. They asked him a question, and this is what we have to be conscious of. Said question, having power. The questioner said, having power, wouldn't it be better if it were, speaking of the black man, to form a black Ku Klux Klan? And this is what they're always trying to get us to do, try to get us to be violent, try to get us, lead us astray or anything. And what he said was this. Malcolm said, no, don't let them maneuver you into forming anything that can be compared with the Ku Klux Klan. See, it is true. We are the target of brutal criminal treatment from the Klan. Now we don't need a black Ku Klux Klan. All we need is black people who believe in brotherhood of man and who will fight anyone who threatens the brotherhood of man. Now the Klan is a threat to the brotherhood, and we are legally within our rights to defend ourselves from this Klan. But if we call ourselves the Klan, what will happen? The press will pick it up, what you make, and make you look wrong, because they will make it look wrong anyway. So if you call yourself that, you can help them. You help them to hurt you. No, we don't want anything to do with the Klan or anything like the Klan. We want to destroy the Klan, disband it, destroy it, erase it from the earth, and we can do that. And then he said, you've been in the army. They taught you all those tricks. Well, use them. And so pay attention. This is when, this is 1965, and you look at the SNCC and the Black Panthers. The SNCC, Malcolm had talked to them, was meeting with SNCC and talking with the young people, and the young people were fired up and ready to meet with him, and he was being influencing them. So he said, you've been in the army, and a lot of people was going to Vietnam at that time. He said, you've been in the army. They taught you all the tricks. Well, use them. I got to say this. Then we're going to close. You need to study guerrilla warfare. Okay? So this is Malcolm making this statement. So, we look at the communists and all these other people associated with the black nationalist movement and socialism and all of these things that he's talking about. But this is Malcolm. This is a continuation of the Garvey movement. This is the other level. He said you need to study guerrilla warfare. Get every book you can find on guerrilla warfare. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Yes, it is good to know everything. There's nothing wrong with knowing that. Why? The government teaches you that. They draft you, they teach you that, don't they? Sure, they taught it to your son. Well, go on and teach it to your son. But then tell your son how to use it. No, you study. We're going to have classes. The Organization of Afro-American Unity is going to have classes in all the various sciences that you and I need to know. Karate, judo, and we got some experts. This brother here is an expert judo man, expert karate man. He'd break the board right there like it wasn't even a board. You come on to the Organization Afro-American Unity and we'll train you and show you how to protect yourself. Not so that you can go out and attack someone. You should never attack anybody. You should never attack anybody. You should never attack anybody. But at the same time, whenever you yourself are attacked, you're not supposed to turn the other cheek. You're supposed to move out the way, make a miss. Never turn the other cheek until you see the white man turn his cheek. The day that the white man turns the cheek, then you turn your cheek. If Martin Luther King was teaching white people to turn the cheek, then I would say he is justified. Goes on, so, you know, when we see what was happening, you know, with Fred Hampton, we see what was happening with the Black Panthers, the call and where we were at that time, because there was a war going on. And they were sending our people at the time they were getting riled up over to Vietnam to be slaughtered because they were on the front line and they were going over there and they were being killed. So there was an interview that Malcolm had before he passed. So we're going to listen to that. We're going to play the first one. Gonna play the first one. All right, here it goes.
Of that home, the possession of the home is, I say this, that the Black Muslim movement has never had as their motive the acquiring of that home. The possession of the home itself means nothing. Elijah Muhammad lives in a $150,000 house in Phoenix, Arizona. That house is worth less than $15,000. It's not the home itself, the material home itself, that is the object of the present court battle. There's more to it than that. And anybody, I should think people should question the deputy fire marshal and the others who investigated the bombing out there that night, and let them give their story as to whether or not I could have set those bombs. And this is why I say I charge the conspiracy on the part of some of the firemen and some of the police and some of the press to give the impression that I said it.
Why would they side with the Black Muslim organization against judo, Malcolm? I don't understand that.
Well,
why you, not them, why them,
let me
not
answer
you?
your question this way. The press, whenever I mentioned that an attempt has been made on my life, they print it in such a way that I am implying that an attempt has been made. The Black Muslim movement tried to kill me in Los Angeles airport 2 weeks ago while I was in the company of the Los Angeles police. The Los Angeles police stopped the TWA Airlines from taking off. They split airlines flight from taking off. They split me into a private room onto the plane through the basement because of the presence of these persons in the airport, who were completely heedless of the presence of the police. Now, this airliner was held up an hour and a half. Every passenger aboard it was taken off. His luggage was searched. I was kept on the plane. My luggage was searched. And then the TWA Airline security agent flew to Chicago from Los Angeles with me. I was met at the airport in Chicago by the Assistant Attorney General of the state of Illinois and at least 20 different detectives. I was held in their custody for 24 hours. I appeared on the Cup Cement show. When I came out of the studio, officials of the Black Muslim movement in Chicago even tried to attack the police to get at me. This was the Los Angeles incident was not reported in the press. The Chicago incident was not reported in the press. A couple days later, I appeared on David Sunstein's hotline on a Tuesday night, February the 2nd. Entering the studio that night, the police department had to clash with about 30 members of the local Black Muslim movement who tried to inflict physical harm upon those who were appearing on the program. None of this was mentioned in the press whatsoever. Now, when by this type of incident being kept from the press, then when I jump out and say that somebody is trying to kill me, the implication is given that I'm trying to do some publicity seeking or that I'm just making these stories up. But our police department from coast to coast in this country has the black Muslim movement well infiltrated, just as they have any other group well infiltrated. They are well aware of these plots and discussions that take place. They can stop them if they want it. Remember the press.
And see, as you see with that statement that he said all of the police departments are well infiltrated, in all of the places. And that was one of the tricks that, Hoover had did. He made sure that, he had people positioned, had relations with these people so they can be able to, continue to subjugate us and put us in that position. And he was talking about the firebombing. A lot of, the show talked about it as far as the individual, had it or the nation had it. No, the nation had no intent to be at war with anybody. But it was individuals that, had their own personal things, and then they took advantage of that situation. What they do is they study us. And one of the great things about the British is that these people are people from an island, and from a small island, yet they were able to control. Why? Because they are the masters of division. They're the masters of divide and conquer. And one of the things Marcus Garvey, in his book, when he talked about the British, he said the great British nation was once a race of slaves in their own country. They were not respected because the Romans went there, brutalized and captured them, took them over to Rome and kept them in slavery. They were not respected in Rome because they were regarded as a slave race. But the Briton did not always remain a slave. As a free man, he went back to his country, Britain, and built up a civilization of his own. And by his self-reliance and initiative, he forced the respect of mankind and maintains it until today. So, yeah, that's a good example to follow. We look at them, you see how they were slaves and see how they were slaves to the Romans. And now, Britain had dominance over, Italy. It had dominance over Rome. And it still has dominance through us because we're just an arm or a wing of it. But when he talked about the press, he said, like the press didn't cover, what they want to. And that's how they do. You see, during the whole time of, what's his name, Donald Trump, they would cut every day, everything they would say, they would put on there, anything. And then they would just, this past year, just stick with COVID and not telling you anything else. Other events are happening, things that are important to us, but they don't do it. The only time they cover it is when it's something beneficial for them. And then, as Marcus Garvey said, he started out chapter 2 with propaganda. And, he said propaganda, he said, and that's 100 years ago. He said, we are living in a civilization that is highly developed. We are living in a world that is scientifically arranged, in which everything done by those who control is done through system, proper arrangement, proper organization. And among some of the organized methods used to control the world is the thing known as propaganda. And at that time, that's when they had the silent movies. And that's why Wilson showed that movie, Birth of a Nation, where it was a straight lie about history, but he showed that we can take this lie, say that the blacks were doing all kinds of things other than what they did, that they were, in Congress and causing havoc and chasing the white women and where they were in the military and all they wanted to do was just rape and pillage. And they showed this type of film and they took it across the country and they showed it to white people that had never seen a black. And so to see these black savages, to them in their minds, attacking white women, it caused them to go out and have race riots. We had Red Summer. We had so much during that time. It's no coincidence that the rise of the Ku Klux Klan started during that time. Why? Because of propaganda. And so propaganda, that's 100 years ago. Imagine how that machine is now. Why? Because that city was founded, Hollywood was founded by racists, and it continues to exist in racists. That's why we're happy to get a role in a place, in a city that is controlled by these people. And the propaganda continues. He said, propaganda has done more to defeat the good intentions of races and nations than even open warfare. Propaganda is a method or medium used by organized people to convert others against their will. We, the Negro race, are suffering more than any other race in the world from propaganda. Propaganda to destroy our hopes, our ambitions, and our confidence 100 years later, and it's still the same. But now we volunteer for the propaganda. We eat it. We act like the propaganda was real. At least they knew that it was propaganda. But like I said, going back to them, they'll study Hitler. And one thing with Hitler, if you look at it in his book, Mein Kampf, he talks about propaganda. He teaches them about the different types of people, what type of people will follow, what type of people like to be able to that you can that listen to speech, what type of people can you write, and breaks it down. I mean, when you go through his book, it's amazing how he breaks it down for them to be able to push propaganda. And look at his propaganda. He was able to drop leaflets on France. He was able to drop leaflets on France and get them to not fight them. Why? Because of what? Propaganda. And they propagated their message to the people. But what do? Propagate some hip hop? Hey, all right, let's go on to the next one. While they're getting that ready, he said, another thing he said, the attitude of the white race. Oh, cool. All right. Go ahead. We good?
This is Contact. You're on the air.
I'd like to address my question to Malcolm. I'd like to know, sir, why do you still use your ex? And as far as the public opinion about you, maybe it's because of your abrupt change to the Black Muslim group to form your own national group that the public is sort of like, they don't exactly know where you stand. I mean, they figured, like you said before, that you were with the Black Muslim and you were definitely with Muhammad. I'm sure that some of the public feel that now that you're with someone else, that they're sort of like influencing you as far as your beliefs are concerned.
That's why I've been very slow since I returned from Africa to really go all out in the formation, or rather I should say the formation of the two organizations in which I'm involved. If you recall, when I was in Mecca, I wrote a letter back saying that when I returned to America, I wouldn't rest until I exposed Elijah Muhammad as the religious faker that he was. I was 100% sincere in saying that. But when I returned, one of the reasons that I initially avoided any kind of discussion or talk about Elijah Muhammad and the Black Muslim movement after leaving Mecca, rather before going to Mecca, I had an hour and a half conversation with President Nasser in Egypt. After leaving Mecca, I spent 3 hours with President Julius Nyerere in what was then Tanganyika, is now Tanzania. I spent a couple of days with President Jomo Kenyatta and the Prime Minister Milton Obote of Uganda, and also President Azikwe in Nigeria, President Nkrumah in Ghana, President Sekou Touré in Guinea. And I had an opportunity to discuss the problem of black people on the African continent, plus the plight of our people in this country. And I won't hesitate to say that conversations with these men broadened my scope tremendously beyond what it was before I went over there. And I felt when I came back that many things that I had learned would be constructive or could be used constructively by black people in this country in our struggle for human dignity. And I felt that I would be wasting my time entering into some kind of dispute with Elijah Muhammad and his followers. And so I spent my time, when I first came back here, trying to get the Organization of Afro-American Unity consolidated, plus the Muslim Mosque, which is based upon Orthodox Islam. But the Black Muslim movement was fearful that if I was ever left alone long enough to get my feet firmly planted on the ground and get our program out here in the public, that it would be too much competition for what they had already projected or had in mind.
So I ask you, are we going to pick up this banner and run with this? This is where Malcolm left off at. He was continuing Marcus Garvey's program of going to Africa and sitting with different African leaders and sitting and trying to make the changes. And when he came back, he was just going to leave that alone, because this fighting between each other, what does it do? It causes us to kill each other. And this is what they want, and this is what they do with the propaganda. One of the things that Marcus Garvey also said, he said the greatest weapon used against a Negro is disorganization. If you have no confidence in yourself, you are twice defeated in the race of life. With confidence, you have won even before you started. And I'm gonna I'm gonna go on to the last one for Malcolm. And this is the end of his interview that he had that day. 3 days before he passed.
Large progressive element within the movement, and usually they're the ones who come in, they stay a year, and they get disillusioned, and they go back out. But I was responsible for giving the people the impression that the black Muslim movement was more than what it is, and I take that responsibility. You can put the complete blame upon me, but at the same time that I take that responsibility, I want to point out that no white man or white group or agency can use me against Elijah Muhammad or against the black Muslim movement. When you hear me open up my mouth against another black man, no white man can put words in my mouth, nor no white man can sick me on another black group. When I have analyzed the man and the group with my own understanding and feel that it is detrimental to the interest of the black community, then I'm going to attack it with that same intensity.
Gordon, you were going to
Well, again, it's more words, and he began by saying that he has to confess that he was responsible for misleading so many people on the Muslim count. There were never very many Muslims. Let's always come back to the fact that not very many people were ever misled. The white press was misled into believing there were a lot of Muslims.
Dr. Hall.
There were never more than 15,000 Muslims in America, and there are only now 6,000, and we have 22 million Negroes in the United States. Keep these facts uppermost in one spot.
You admitted this at the very beginning, Bob. You said the 15,000 figure is correct.
Here's another fact.
These are facts.
Here's another fact you have to keep in mind. There never were many Mau Mau. There never were. There were always more Kikuyu, more Kenyans than Mau Mau.
What is this supposed to prove?
But it was the Mau Mau who brought independence to Kenya.
Yes, but
And the man who was regarded as an extremist and a monster just 5 years ago, Jomo Kenyatta, is the president of the Republic of Kenya today. And it is this same man who 5 years
the
ago...
situation in colonial Africa is not like it is in the United
Well,
States.
this is colonial. Anytime you have a system in 1965 that will take children and let them be marched down the road by not...
In numbers, you have to draw one big analogy. In the United States, the Negro is still a minority in the United States. And when you're talking about minorities within minorities, you start boiling it all down. I can't really draw that analogy.
I say this, that the Mau Mau was also a minority, a microscopic minority, but it was the Mau Mau who not only brought independence to Kenya,
Within a vast Negro majority.
but it but it's still, that wick, the powder keg is always larger than the wick. The smallest thing in the powder keg is the wick. You can touch the powder all day long and nothing happens. It's the wick that you touch that sets the powder off.
I think it'll blow up.
It's the wick that you touch that sets the powder off. And if you go here in Holland, and you take all these moderate Negroes that Dr. Hall here puts the stamp of approval on and regards them as responsible, they don't explode. It's the wick, it's that small element that you refer to as nationalists and other...
You're doing all you can to encourage it now.
Not encourage.
Whether you're inflammatory,
I don't encourage it, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it doesn't exist.
Malcolm,
I don't think so. How are you going to incite people who are living in slums and ghettos? It's the city structure that incites. A city that continues to let people live in rat nest dens in Harlem and pay higher rent in Harlem than they pay downtown. This is what incites it. Who lets merchants outcharge or overcharge people for their groceries and their clothing and other commodities in Harlem while you pay lesser for it downtown. This is what incites it. A city that will not create some kind of employment for people who are barred from having jobs just because their skin is black. That's what incites it. Don't ever accuse a black man for voicing his resentment and dissatisfaction over the criminal condition of his people as being responsible for inciting a situation. You have to indict the society that allows these things to exist. And this is where I differ with Dr. Hall.
Very... Like you said, you can never blame it on the person for complaining about his situation. You have to indict the society. And here we are, now from that 56 years ago, and we're still in the same condition. We have to be able to move forward with the plan. We have to be able to move forward with the program that's been established. And like you say, you see how radical Malcolm was getting, and especially once he got assassinated, the younger people, the younger generation, SNCC, you had, Stokely Carmichael, and you had H. Rap Brown, which is now Jamil Al-Amin. And Jamil Al-Amin, he was very radical at that time after, but he changed. And He accepted Islam, went into full Islam. He's still alive, and he went up to the next level. Because the next level, you know, revolution goes through stages. There's different things in the revolution. Revolution is not just by the gun in societies. The revolution is through the mind. Revolution is through the soul. And right now, that's where we are. What they're trying to do, they're not trying to take over your house. We see these murders that are happening, you know, but you look at the number of blacks that's there, they're taking more of our children's mind, taking more of our children's soul, taking more of our children's guidance and misguiding them through propaganda, through the media. It is important for us to be able to establish our own type of media outlets and be able, not commercial, you know, public, where we contribute, to be able to give direction, to be able to teach the people how to be able to, what they should do with the PTA meetings, to be able to teach the people the laws of the police supposed to abide by, the city's supposed to abide by, who are they going to be able to put their complaints in, to be able to teach the kids how to read, to be able to teach parents how to be parents. We should force them to be able to have parenting classes in schools. They want to teach them sex education, but never teach them anything about parenting. They want to give them condoms and all kinds of things, but never teach them anything about parenting. We have to be able to make this change, and we also have to be able to stop this slavery, this trap that they have, for them to go from 500,000 blacks or people in prison, and when Reagan, from that racist state, came in in that 20-year period, and now we have 2.4 million people in prison, million slaves, and like it says, the 13th Amendment, slavery is illegal except in cases of imprisonment, except when slavery is illegal. Slavery is illegal except in cases of imprisonment where a person has been duly convicted of a crime. So that means slavery is with the prison system. So we have to be able to go to our elders. And one thing, going back to, like I said, right now everybody's into with Fred Hampton. With this, Fred Hampton, when he started his speech, he said this statement. I'm gonna end with this. He said, "I'm the deputy chairman of the state of Illinois' Black Panther Party, Fred Hampton. A lot of people don't understand the Black Panther relationship with white mother country radicals. A lot of people don't even understand that the word that Eldridge uses a lot. What we're saying is that they are white people in the mother country that are for the same types of things that we are for, stimulating revolution in the mother country. And we said that we will work with anybody, form coalitions with anybody that has revolution on their minds. We're not a racist organization because we understand that racism is an excuse used for capitalism. And we know that racism is a byproduct of capitalism." And then he went on later to say, and he said, "Okay, you can put your hands down right now. We all say to all power to all the people, all power to all the people. We say white power to white people. We brown power to brown people. Brown power to brown people, yellow power to yellow people, yellow power to yellow people, black power to black people, black power to black people, X power to those we left out, X power to those we left out. We say Panther power to the Vanguard Party, Panther Party to the Panther power to the Vanguard Party." So don't let them lead you astray. Let's be able to focus. Let's study this history. Let's make this change. If they were able to achieve those things 100 years ago, let's build on top of that and take it to the next level. You have the ability, but we got to stay awoke in this time of revolution. Peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum.